Gilmore. Can I catch the call? Dr. Gilmore.
First of all, I want to join with Deputy Kenny and with the Taoiseach in welcoming Deputy George Lee and Deputy Maureen O'Sullivan to the House and to wish them well for their time here. Last Friday, Count something happened that I never thought I would see in this country. The number of people out of work went over 400,000 for the first time ever. Those are people who have paid for the government's mistakes with their jobs. The people who are still at work are paying for the government's mistake in the forms of levies and additional taxes on their incomes. The pensioners who had to give back their medical cards have paid for the government mistake. Children with special needs in schools who don't have the additional teachers and the additional resources that they need are the people who are paying for the government's mistakes. Now, it's not surprising in that context that last Friday the people of this country gave the most emphatic rejection that has ever happened in this state of a sitting government. And since then, we've had a succession of ministers, and today the Taoiseach telling us that that verdict by the Irish people doesn't matter, that the government intends to limp on, run to the bunker, and hope to recover for another day. The Taoiseach says that that's the government displaying courage. It's anything but. That is the government displaying its fright and its terror of facing the Irish people in a general election. This government has lost its mandate. It's lost its moral authority to govern. It's lost the consent of the governed, on which any democratic government depends. It has lost the confidence of the Irish people. Taoiseach, how can a government which has lost the confidence of the people continue in office? Do you accept, let's start with the beginning, do you accept, first of all, that the government was rejected by the Irish people last Friday? Do you accept that last Friday the overwhelming majority of people who went out to vote voted against the government? Will you accept that verdict? Or will you rely, as you appear to be relying, on the fact that you claim you have a majority of members of the House who will vote with you in a motion of confidence? May I suggest to you that that majority is now a redundant majority. It is redundant because it is based on a vote which was cast 2 years ago, which would not be replicated today or not be repeated today. Your government does not have the essential support of the people. I'm not talking about temporary popularity. I'm not talking about approval ratings which will always go up and down in opinion polls for any government. I'm talking about a pattern that has existed for some months now, reflected in opinion polls, yes, and confirmed overwhelmingly and emphatically last Friday in a real election. Your government does not have the support, the confidence or the mandate of the Irish people now. And for you to continue in government is to defy that will of the Irish people. And I repeat to you the request that was made by Deputy Kenny, that before we debate a motion of confidence on your government here in this House, that you now should do the decent thing, the honourable thing, the democratic thing, which is to respect the wishes and the will of the Irish people, to announce to this House your intention to resign your government, to go to Áras an Uachtaráin, seek a dissolution of the Dáil, and let us have a general election so that the people of the country, not the members of this House who were elected 2 years ago in entirely different economic and political circumstances, but the people of the country can decide who should be governing this country in the difficult years ahead. With the greatest of respect, Taoiseach, you are wrong. There is no comparison between what happened last Friday and what you claimed happened in 1985 and 1991. First of all, because the scale of the rejection of the government last Friday far outweighed the scale of any mid-term downturn in the fortunes of a government in 1985 and 1981. Secondly, those elections were primarily about local issues. And yes, the popularity of the government and so on was a factor in those elections. You may not know this, Taoiseach, for the reasons that Deputy Kenny reminded you of, because you weren't in touch with people during the course of the recent election campaign. But the fact of the matter is that the recent election that we had on Friday was not about local issues, was not about European issues. It was about the state of the economy and your mismanagement of it. It was a referendum on this government, and the people rejected you. And your assertion that what the people want you to do is to carry on. The last thing the people want you to do is to carry on. The people want rid of you and your government. That is the message from last Friday. And the decision that you have to make, and it is a decision that you now have to make shortly, is whether you are going to defy that will of the Irish people and whether you are going to carry on, not in the interests of recovery of the country, but in the hope, in the interests that in the course of time your party and your colleagues in government will recover their political fortunes in the course of time by getting yourself under the hatches, carrying on, and hope that people will forget about the mismanagement of the economy. But they won't.